The lock clicked with a sound that felt louder than it should have been, sharp as a warning shot in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, and in that instant the sunlight spilling through the hallway window seemed to tilt, as if the house itself had leaned away from me. The smell of lemon cleaner hovered in the air, the clock ticked like it always did, and yet everything changed in that single deliberate moment when the door sealed behind me and I realized I was no longer just visiting a familiar place. I was standing at the edge of something that could either break me or remake me. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength it takes to choose compassion when fear shows up uninvited, take a moment right now to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Touch. Your support keeps stories like this alive. The house belonged to Maribel Carr, my mother's longtime friend, the kind of woman who kept her curtains open during the day and her heart guarded behind polite smiles. I had known her since childhood, from summer afternoons when she handed me iced water and asked about school, from birthdays when she clapped politely and watched the candles melt. That day the sun sat high and bright, pouring warmth across the tiled floor, and I had arrived with a simple purpose, to drop off a folder of medical papers my mother had asked me to deliver while she waited for a late bus. It was a small errand, nothing heroic or dramatic, just a pause between classes and responsibilities, a step into a place that had always felt neutral, safe enough to be forgettable. The lock told a different story. The hallway narrowed in my mind, shadows pooling where there had been none. Maribel's smile followed the sound, careful and measured, the kind people practice in mirrors when they want to appear calm. She moved with the ease of someone who had planned her steps, and the day's brightness pressed against the windows as if curious. I felt the heat on my skin, the weight of the folder in my hands, the soft hum of a refrigerator in the kitchen, all of it grounding and unreal at the same time. Fear did not rush in screaming, it seeped, slow and cold, whispering that ordinary afternoons can turn strange without permission. I had grown up learning to keep the peace. My mother, Naila Rahman, raised me with a careful blend of tenderness and practicality, teaching me that survival often meant staying polite, staying quiet, staying observant. After my father passed, the world narrowed for us, and kindness from friends like Maribel became a lifeline. That history complicated everything because suspicion felt like betrayal, and trust felt like a debt I did not know how to repay. Standing there, I reminded myself that fear is not proof, that moments can be misunderstood, that adults sometimes behave awkwardly without meaning harm. Even as my pulse quickened, I searched for explanations that would return the day to normal. Maribel gestured toward the living room, her posture open, the air of the house still scented with soap and sun. I followed, not because I wanted to, but because decades of being agreeable pulled me forward. The room was bright, curtains drawn back, the sofa neatly arranged with cushions no one ever seemed to use. Photos lined the shelves, family gatherings, vacations, faces frozen in smiles that looked like they belonged to a simpler time. My reflection in the glass frames looked smaller than I felt, a young person caught between obedience and instinct. I sat because there was nowhere else to go, and because standing felt like a challenge I was not ready to issue. Minutes stretched. Maribel busied herself with small tasks, straightening a magazine, wiping an already clean table, movements that filled the silence without addressing it. My thoughts raced through every lesson my mother had ever taught me, every warning about boundaries, every reminder that help should never require fear. I noticed details I had ignored before, the way Maribel avoided meeting my eyes for too long, the tension in her shoulders, the door still locked behind us like a punctuation mark at the end of a sentence I could not read. Outside, a bird chirped, the normal world continuing without concern for the knot forming in my chest. Then something unexpected happened. The tension cracked, not with an explosion but with a sigh. Maribel's movement slowed, and the careful smile slipped into something weary, something human. She sat across from me, hands folded, gaze lowered to the floor where sunlight traced a warm rectangle. In that quiet, the story shifted. The air felt heavier but also clearer, as if honesty had entered the room before words did. I realized then that fear can be a mirror, reflecting not only danger, but pain we do not yet understand. Maribel's life had not unfolded the way she had planned. The photographs on the shelves were relics of promises that never kept. Illness had stolen time, grief had stolen confidence, and loneliness had settled in like dust, unnoticed until it coated everything. My mother had been one of the few constants, a bridge to a world where connection still existed. That afternoon, the locked door was not a trap, but a pause, a clumsy attempt to hold on to someone who represented safety when her own life felt like it was unraveling. Understanding did not erase my fear, but it reframed it, turning the sharp edge into something softer, more complex. The folder of medical papers suddenly mattered more. My mother's handwriting on the cover felt like a thread pulling me back to myself. I remembered the nights she stayed up late worrying, the mornings she forced a smile and went to work anyway. I remembered how kindness had saved us more than once, how second chances had arrived disguised as inconvenience. In that light, Maribel's actions became a question rather than a verdict. What do we do when someone's pain spills over and brushes against our own boundaries? I chose to breathe. I chose to speak with my body language, easing back into the sofa, unclenching my hands, letting my shoulders drop. Safety is not always immediate, but it can be negotiated, especially when fear meets empathy halfway. The afternoon light softened, clouds drifting past the window, casting the room in gentle shifts of brightness. Time resumed its normal pace, no longer stretched thin by dread. The lock on the door remained, but its power diminished as understanding grew. Maribel eventually rose and crossed the hallway, the sound of the lock releasing no longer echoing like a threat, but settling into the background hum of life. The door opened, and fresh air flowed in, carrying the scent of dust and leaves from outside. Daytime sounds returned, a distant engine, a neighbor's laughter, the world reminding us that it was still there, still moving. Relief washed through me, not as triumph, but as quiet gratitude. I stepped outside into the sun, the warmth grounding me in my body again. The errand was complete, but the experience lingered, reshaping something inside me. I understood then that kindness does not mean ignoring fear, and boundaries do not mean withholding compassion. The two can coexist, strengthening each other when handled with care. My mother arrived later, worried lines easing when she saw me safe, and I carried the lesson home like a fragile gift. Days passed, and the memory softened into reflection. Maribel reached out through small gestures, apologies woven into acts rather than words, respect rebuilt brick by brick. I learned to trust my instincts without letting them harden my heart. I learned that daytime, with all its clarity and light, can still hold shadows, and that facing them honestly is what turns fear into growth. Life did not become simpler, but it became richer. I noticed how many people carry locked doors inside them, closing out the world when they feel overwhelmed. Not to harm, but to survive. I noticed how often timing feels cruel when it is actually precise, placing us where we need to be to learn what matters. That afternoon, once terrifying, became a cornerstone of my understanding, a reminder that courage sometimes looks like staying present, listening and choosing a path that honors both self and other. If this story stirred something in you, if it reminded you of a moment when fear and kindness collided in your own life, please take a second to like this video, share it, and leave a heartfelt comment. Your engagement tells us these stories matter, and it helps kindness touch reach others who need them.